Astronauts in space insert the chip into the card slot. The next second, his bionic man at home on Earth is awakened. This is high technology created specifically for astronauts. For astronauts on long and tedious missions, in their free time they can still go home to their families. On this day, Jack was sleeping at home. Suddenly he noticed that someone was in the house. He grabbed a baseball bat and went downstairs. He found 4 or 5 gang members in the house. They claimed that this technology that Jack uses is not in accordance with the laws of nature, so they wanted to sabotage it. Next, several men grabbed Jack, slashed straight through his arm, and sure enough, Jack wasn't bleeding. Inside was cold machinery. That's when a man hit Jack on the head. Jack, far away in space, woke up instantly. He hurriedly inserted the chip into the slot, connected again to its own bionic man on Earth, but by now he was tied up. The wife and child were also tied up. Several people wondered if the family was all bionic, so he brutally killed Jack's wife and children, and destroyed his bionic man. Jack, in space, is grief-stricken. However, the cycle for this task is 6 years. He and his companions had only been on the mission for 2 years. How will they get on with their lives? His companion, Tom, heard about Jack. Tom often came to comfort him, but Jack simply couldn't let it go. From this point on, Jack is like losing his soul. He had no interest in anything, because there are only 2 of them on this mission. It also takes 2 people to operate a space station. Tom can enjoy life even with a normal connect to the bionic man, but Jack turned out to be this. This is bound to affect the work of both men. He also became increasingly frightened. In order to restore Jack's condition, Tom and his wife wanted Jack to use his link to get some fresh air on Earth, and Tom's wife took pity on Jack, so she agreed. Back on the space station, Tom inserts his own chip, getting Jack to connect to his bionic man. Back on Earth again, Jack has found a long-lost feeling. It felt good to be on the ground. Tom's wife showed Jack around their house. The 2 of them took a walk in the forest together, but they were halfway there. Jack remembered his own tragedy and cried with sadness. Back on the space station, Jack was very grateful to Tom. He feels in much better shape. Tom also didn't think much of it, connecting the bionic man back home. But when he returned to the station again, he found that Jack had drawn a picture of his house. He said he'd drawn it from memory. And then, Jack made an unreasonable request. Jack wants to borrow Tom's bionic man to paint a picture of his house. Of course, that could take a long time. Tom didn't just say yes. He went home and talked it over with his wife. He thought it would help Jack recover. Tom thinks could be given an hour a week. Tom's wife was a little resistant, but agreed. And that's how Jack began to borrow Tom's bionic man to draw. At first, Jack did not do anything out of the ordinary. He just focused on his drawing and left when it was time. But after coming over a few times, Jack began to teach Tom's wife how to draw, and often chatted about topics of interest to Tom's wife. And sometimes he even borrowed Tom's wife's sympathy and make physical contact with her. On this very day, the 2 almost lost control, but Tom's wife stopped in time. However, on the space station, Tom had nothing better to do than wander into Jack's room. He found Jack had drawn a lot of pictures of his house. However, in one of the notebook, there were drawings of his wife. There were even nude photos in it. Tom was instantly enraged. He found Jack and asked what was this all about? Jack said nothing had happened. These are just his fantasies. Tom doesn't believe it. He immediately connects to the bionic and goes home. He asks his wife what was this all about? The wife swore that nothing had happened to Jack and her. Tom was relieved to hear his wife's words. He went back to the space station and gave Jack a good scolding. And don't allow Jack to use his link in the future. But in such a lifeless place, the behavior of the 2 men is entirely based on moral constraints. But now their treatment is out of balance. That morality will soon be gone. On this day, Tom is enjoying life on Earth. Jack urgently recalls him to the space station, claims that a cooling tube leaked from the impact on the space station. Needed to go out and fix it right away. Tom didn't think twice about it. He put on his clothes and went out. But he checked. He couldn't find any leaking cooling tubes at all. But after he got back to the space station, he found that Jack had tampered with his chip. He immediately felt that something was wrong. Rushed to connect his own bionic man. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw blood on his hands. There's blood all over the house, and his wife and kids were all dead. Paralyzed girl finds another label under the bottle of medicine she has been taking for 18 years. The girl deliberately acted calm and continued to take the medicine her mother had handed her. But after her mother left, she quietly spat out the pills in her mouth. She wants to know what these pills are. The girl's name is Ellie. Since birth, she has suffered from diabetes, asthma, and paralysis of her lower limbs. She has been taking these medications for 18 years. Every time she took them, her mother would bring them to her in person, and Ellie never doubted her in the slightest. After all, what mother would harm her own child? Until one day, when her mother came home from shopping, Ellie wanted to take some chocolates out of the shopping bag. It was then that Ellie found the capsules in the bag. The strange thing was that the medicine was clearly for her own consumption, but on the label was her mother's name. Suddenly, the sound of her mother's footsteps came. The girl had to leave here first. This night, her mother came to deliver the medicine as usual. Remembering what had happened during the day, Ellie hesitated for a moment, because the capsule had her mother's name on the bottle. As her mother was leaving, Ellie couldn't help but ask about it, but her mother said the doctor had written the wrong name and told Ellie not to worry. In the end, Ellie chose to trust her mother, but gradually Gradually, the dosage of medication increased. This made Ellie a little suspicious too. Ellie is a very good learner despite her leg disability. This day while her mother was away, with her homemade robotic arm she removed the bottle of medicine from high up. When she stepped out of the room, she was surprised to find that the mail truck had just come by. Excited, Ellie rushed downstairs on the lift. She'd been waiting for her university notice. She was just about to open the door when she bumped into her mother. Her mother told her that there was nothing in the mail. The mother promised that if she received a letter of acceptance to the university, she would give it to Ellie as soon as possible. Back in her room, Ellie studied the medicine she had just stolen. The name on it was indeed his mother's. But the scary thing is that there is another layer of labels inside the label. After that, Ellie stopped trusting her mother. Every time she drank the medicine, she would spit it out secretly because she had to find out what the medicine did. This night, while her mother was asleep, she quietly took the lift to the computer. She was about to look up the effects of the drug on the internet. To her dismay, there was no internet at home. Unbeknownst to her, this scene had been discovered by her mother. The next day, Ellie still didn't want to give up. Seeing her mother watering the orchard and looking at the capsules on the table, she decided to call the pharmacy and ask for information. But it was her mother's old friend who answered the phone. The person on the other end knew it was Ellie's house. Ellie was so frightened that she hung up the phone. When she came to the window, her mother was still outside watering. Ellie decided to try again. She then called a stranger's number. Luckily, the person on the other end was also a warm-hearted person. When Ellie gave the name of the medicine, the caller told her that the medicine was for heart disease, and according to the description, the capsules were supposed to be red. Instead, the capsule in front of Ellie's eyes was green. At that moment, Ellie panicked. She couldn't understand why her mother was giving her medication. To get to the bottom of it, during dinner Ellie suggested that she wanted to go to the movies with her mother.
What do you want to see?
Before departure the next day, Ellie hid the pills she hadn't taken all day in her pocket. She wanted to use this opportunity to find out the truth. Soon, mother and daughter arrived at the cinema. By the time the movie was half over, Ellie lied that she had drunk too much water and needed to go to the toilet, and so she managed to leave the cinema. Ellie found the nearest pharmacy in her wheelchair. Unfortunately, there were too many people at the checkout. By the time it was her turn, the cinema was probably finished. She had no choice but to ask everyone to let her check out first. The older man was about to refuse, but when he saw the condition of Ellie, he was too embarrassed to refuse, and so, she was placed first in line as expected. When asked by the shop assistant, Ellie immediately took out the green capsule in her pocket and asked about its effectiveness. The reply from the other side scared Ellie. The medicine was meant for animals. The medical name is muscle relaxant. As the name implies, it can cause loss of feeling in the legs over a long period of time.
If you gave a human being Lidocaine, I suppose your legs could go numb?
Ellie couldn't believe it, and her mother arrived just in time. A man actually steps on a landmine while taking a picture, and he doesn't even know it. The attentive photographer noticed the situation. Ellie thought he didn't know how to use the camera and tried to help. The photographer was quick to stop her.
There is a bomb.
The three of them looked confused. Tom looked down and saw that Jack had indeed stepped on something, telling him not to move. Tom then knelt down and slowly peeled back the dirt. It really was a landmine. The photographer was afraid of hurting himself, tried to get down the hill to find someone and ran away. Ellie was crying on the sidelines. Jack, who had stepped on a landmine, had a blank head. Tom was still calm. He took the phone to the top of the hill and called for help. Ellie thought they were going to be saved, but when Tom came down, Tom's face immediately changed. It turns out that he was the one who placed the mine. He said there would be no mobile phone reception this high up the mountain. I'm trying to trick you on purpose. It turns out that Tom found out that Jack and Ellie had both betrayed him. One was the best of brothers. The other was his unmarried wife. Tom couldn't stand the two men's bad behavior. In a fit of rage, he lured them here on purpose, knowing that things have been revealed. Ellie cried out for Tom's forgiveness. Tom has long been disappointed. He didn't want to hear any more of Ellie's explanations. Then Tom went into the woods, took out the shovel he had prepared before, and said to Ellie, after Jack is blown up, dig a hole and bury him, to avoid polluting the environment. At this moment, Jack suspected that the bomb was a fake, because Tom was standing next to him for half a day, and wasn't he afraid that if his foot shivered, and blow him up with him? Without waiting for Jack to finish, Tom yanked the safety off the mine, and now Jack just has to move his foot accidentally. He'll be blown up. Seeing this, Ellie rushed forward and hugged Tom, begging and pleading. Seeing that Ellie would do anything for Jack, Tom was now even more angry. He threw the landmine safety into the woods. Then he went down the hill without a backward glance. It had come to this and Jack also given up. He told Ellie to get out of here before he got blown up, but Ellie wouldn't leave. No matter what, she told Jack to hold on. Don't give up. After said those words, Ellie ran into the woods and searched. After a while, she actually found the landmine safety pin, but the two operated for half an hour. Safety pin still cannot be inserted back into the mine. There is no other way. Ellie had to pick up a shovel and dig a hole behind Jack. If he had jumped fast enough, he might have been able to save his life. And this scene was just seen by a passing hunter. He wanted to watch from behind a rock, but then his big black dog charged straight at they. Ellie uses a shovel to chase away vicious dog. The hunter rushes forward with his gun.
Why are you attacking the dog?
I don't understand. My friend stepped on a land
A beautiful woman was assaulted by a doctor while she was unconscious during anesthesia surgery, but when it was over, the doctor told her it was a hallucination of the anesthetic, but she decided it wasn't a hallucination, so she immediately went to another hospital. She had the doctor check her body. It was surprising that someone else's DNA had actually been extracted from her body. Now Ellie was sure of her judgment. Then she immediately went to the police to report the incident, but to her surprise the police didn't believe her, because the doctor had been in town for over 10 years, usually kind-hearted and helpful. There's no way he would do such a thing. She asked Ellie to recall carefully, did something happen before that? But she suddenly lost her memory and couldn't tell me. She only remembered that she had a fight with her boyfriend, accidentally hit by a shelf, so came to hospital. Although the police officer gave his word of honor that the doctor would never do such a thing, but because the beauty was so determined. In the end, they had no choice but to open a case. The police found the doctor, told him exactly what the girl had accused him of. Then they wanted to take his blood and match it with the DNA in the girl's body. Out of trust in the doctor, the police did not take his blood in person. Instead, they told him to take it himself and send it over. Soon, the doctor handed over his own blood. After a DNA comparison, it was not the same person as the one in the beauty's body. The police officers were not surprised, because all of them felt that a good-hearted doctor wouldn't violate a girl for no reason. It wasn't long before the police found Ellie in front of her colleagues and students. The news was loudly announced that the doctor had not assaulted her. Now Ellie's reputation is in tatters. Ellie was furious. She was the victim. Now she's being treated like this. She came to the police station to ask for an explanation, questioning whether blood was taken in person. Soon, Ellie attracted the attention of the chief. Sure enough, when questioned by the chief, it was only after the police officer said that he had indeed not followed the procedure, but he also said that he would bet his life the doctor would never do such a thing. But of course Ellie disagreed. She wanted the truth. Ellie threatened the sheriff that if the forensic investigation was not reopened, she would go online to the media to expose what they had done. The police had no choice but to reopen the case. This time they found the doctor. They took his blood in front of everyone, but the doctor wasn't afraid and cooperated frankly. The police soon had the results. The second sample still did not match. This means that the doctor was wrongly accused, since the sheriff was supervising the whole thing this time. She no longer believes Lisa's bullshit. The sheriff even thinks she's trying to blackmail the doctor, and Ellie didn't dare to argue any further. If the unwarranted request for tracing continues, the sheriff would have arrested her for false accusations. He hoped that this would be the end of the matter. Ellie arrives at the supermarket disappointed. He received blank stares from strangers. The cashier even refused to let her shop. Ellie had no choice but to leave. She locked herself in her room. She lost her self-confidence. The long hours of mental anguish. She suffered from depression. Old father can't bear to see his daughter like this. He decided to leave the city with his family. Ellie began to receive treatment in a new environment, but images of that day always came back to her mind. She was still convinced that something had happened that night, but the police results don't lie either. Father wants her to be positive about life. The day was slowly getting back on track, but this day her sister was playing outside. When the neighbor's girl asked her why she had moved here, she said it was because her sister had done something wrong. No one would believe her story anymore. The words pierced Ellie's heart deeply. She decided she had to prove himself again, so she went back to the town alone, hoping that the police would reopen the case. A beautiful woman was assaulted by a doctor while she was unconscious during anesthesia surgery, but when it was over, the doctor told her it was a hallucination of the anesthetic, but she decided it wasn't a hallucination. Ellie then returned to the city. She came back to the police station to ask for a retrial, but the FBI told her that there could be no retrial unless new evidence was obtained. To investigate the evidence, she secretly found a detective, paying him a lot of money to infiltrate the hospital to get the evidence for herself. But the doctor is very cunning. After a lot of hard work, the detective only managed to get the doctor's spit. As soon as Ellie got the evidence, she sent it to the testing department for testing. In the middle of the test, she approached the doctor's assistant again. As someone who had been with the doctor for a long time, she definitely knew things that no one else knew. He warned his assistant that the devil must not be spared. Today he can violate himself. Tomorrow he can violate you. And the day after that, your daughter. But after round of threats, the assistant still wouldn't budge. And when the people of the town saw Ellie again, they started pointing and swearing at her again, calling her out for bullying honest people. And the assistant suddenly changed her mind when she saw the scene. The assistant was convinced by Ellie. She secretly steals medical records from the hospital. It's full of girls with a history of hospitalization, and they hadn't come back since. Her instincts told her that there was something wrong here. To be able to find new evidence, she began to visit each of the addresses on the list. However, when Ellie explained her intentions, the girls' faces changed instantly. Not only are all these people rich wom, they also had happy families. All of them said nothing about Ellie's suspicions. On the other hand, the private detective started to compare the saliva samples overnight, but the results were beyond anyone's expectation. As the saliva was mixed with glue, they didn't get any results. But the incident alerted the police chief. He heard about Ellie. The sheriff said that one person could be so persistent about the matter. There must be something behind it. So when Ellie didn't have definitive proof, he chose to reopen the case. The doctor was called to the police station again, but although it had been a long time, but the doctor was still calm. He held out his arm for the doctor to draw another tube of blood, and this time Ellie saw the whole thing. As she waited, Ellie panicked inside. If it didn't turn out to be him, then all her efforts would have been in vain. But when the results came back, Ellie was stunned. The results were still not the same as before. Now the police chief chief is also beginning to think she is delusional. Slowly, she felt a little dizzy, beginning to think could it really be that she was misremembering? But just at that moment, the doctor suddenly said he was relocating abroad and would be leaving in a few days. If Ellie didn't have proof within 3 days, then the doctor will have to fly out on a plane. Ellie is furious and angry. She can't think of any other proof. She began to wonder if the doctor had the power to change his blood, or had a mole in the police department tampered with the report? Just when she was at her wit's end, suddenly, a girl found him. She told Ellie about her own experience. She had felt violated herself when Ellie approached her before. She was afraid to talk about it, but now she didn't have a chance if she didn't speak up. So she went to court and identified the doctor. This time, she had a witness and the doctor was arrested again. The police chose to draw blood from the fingertips this time. Then they added a saliva match, but this time it was a match. It was the same DNA that was in the doctor's body before. This time the evidence was overwhelming. Ellie is finally cleared of any wrongdoing, and the doctor was sent to prison. And the reason the doctor got away with it the first 2 times, because he had a rubber tube buried under his skin, and the tube was filled with someone else's blood. So one test after another went awry. But the bad guys can't escape the law after all. This 9-year-old girl suddenly realizes she seems to be pregnant, but no matter how hard she tries, she couldn't fit into the largest size of children's clothing. Although her mother was surprised, but didn't think it was the pregnancy at all. She just reassured daughter that it was probably indigestion. Just take some medicine and she'll be fine. At night, however, Ellie was hiding in the bathroom throwing up, like a pregnant woman's pregnancy reaction. Mom was terrified. She stroked Ellie's back anxiously. Dad quickly passes a towel. They plan to take the child to hospital for tests as soon as it is light, but that's how it was delayed. Ellie's condition became more serious. Her belly was getting bigger and bigger, lying unconscious in the back seat. When they arrived at the hospital, the doctor examined Ellie all over, but the results were surprising, because from the images alone, the body was normal. There was nothing wrong with her. Mom got anxious when she heard that. Her daughter's belly was almost as big as a 9-month pregnant woman. She was also nauseous, dizzy and vomiting. This is clearly a sign of pregnancy. However, the doctor explained that the child should be suffering from lactose intolerance, causing indigestion. That's why the tummy suddenly became bigger. The mother was even more confused when she heard this, but a result is better than no result at all. The couple was finally relieved. However, that very night, Mom was suddenly awakened by Ellie's cries. She rushed upstairs and rushed to Ellie's room. As soon as she entered, she saw Ellie rolling on the bed in a sweaty heap, holding her stomach in pain. They were horrified. Not daring to delay any longer, they set off at once. They rushed Ellie to the largest hospital in the area overnight. But the surprising thing is, by the time they got to the emergency room, the young doctor said calmly, "A condition like this is a normal gastroesophageal reflux. Just take a walk after dinner." With that, he turned his head and was ready to go. The couple chased them to the door and begged the doctor to re-examine their daughter's body. But the doctor was impatient and said, "If you don't believe me, you can go to another hospital. Don't take your time here." Now Mom is totally pissed off. She yanked the doctor back, like a lioness protecting her cubs. With tears in her eyes, she expressed her anger.
You find me another doctor, you run some more tests. I'm not leaving this hospital until I know what's wrong with my daughter.
Seeing how persistent the family was, the doctor could only nod in agreement, and then reluctantly walked away. The couple waited anxiously all night. It was only at dawn. A new doctor has just come into the room to report inspection results. However, the first thing the doctor said left the couple stunned. The woman has just finished bathing in the sea, but when she comes ashore, but found that her husband was actually taking off his pants. He had untied his belt and tied it in a circle, climbing up the coconut tree like a monkey. Ellie was curious about what her husband was doing, so she went down the mountain road to find him. But when she arrived, she heard her husband flirting with another woman. Ellie was furious. She wants to shake the coconut tree right now and dropping her husband to his death. But on second thought, she might as well see how her husband reacted first.
Seryoja!
The husband's face turns pale, hides his mobile phone in a panic, turns to his wife and sees her all smiles. Jack thought the matter was not exposed, so he makes the excuse that he was picking coconuts. But when Ellie heard such a perfunctory answer, not only was the woman not angry, instead, she nodded with an affirmative face. She seems to have a plan of her own. Turning to the evening, the couple look like they're really on holiday, snuggled up by the campfire, resting. The wife acted as if nothing had happened, still stroking her husband's forehead gently with her hand. But how could it be that simple? After her husband falls asleep, the wife silently gazes at the speedboat they came in, and made a decision that Jack would regret for the rest of his life. The next morning, Jack woke up to a rising tide. He hasn't figured out what's going on yet. His wife came slowly from afar. As she walked, she said,
Значит, катер унесло в океан, а телефон ты потерял. Ну не переживай. Ты же сам мне вчера говорил. Сюда каждый день ходят экскурсии. Кто-нибудь приедет, нас заберет.
Hearing his wife's words, Jack suddenly had a bad feeling, but he can only pretend that it doesn't matter. Sitting on the beach pretending to watch the view, his wife came over and stroked his head comfortingly. Then she said she was going into the woods to look for fruit. But when she got into the woods, she walked quickly to the other side of the island, to a hidden cave, because the boat hadn't been washed away at all. Her idea was simple. Since her husband wanted to betray her, she would hide the boat and the phone. In this way, her husband and she would be trapped on this uninhabited island forever. At night, they lie on the beach, comfortably drinking the wine they brought. Jack is calm on the surface, but panicked inside. Just then, he suddenly sees a key to the speedboat around his wife's neck. He understood everything at once, so he silently turned his head away. His eyes suddenly became fierce. Early the next morning, Jack got up early, says he has to go to the toilet. The wife noticed something unusual and hurriedly felt for her chest, and found that the keys around her neck had disappeared. She stood up to give chase, but the next moment she fell heavily to the ground. She twisted her head around to find her right foot tied by a vine. While his wife was still confused, Jack walked quickly to the speedboat he had found overnight, ready to leave this place, leaving his hated wife on the desert island forever. But the strange thing is that his wife had clearly untied the vine and regained her freedom, but she wasn't going to catch up. This boy could learn to swim in 5 minutes, but he's afraid of water by nature. In order to woo Ellie, he made a brave decision. Jack jumped into the pool with a start. He didn't come up even though he was about to die from suffocation. In the nick of time, a beautiful figure swam over. It was Ellie, the lifeguard. Ellie got him out of the way. The next day, he came to see Ellie again to learn how to swim, but Ellie said he was too stupid. Maybe he'll learn to float only if he drowns. But surprisingly, in the time it took Ellie to go to the toilet, he had fully mastered the buoyancy of water. When Ellie came back, she couldn't believe her eyes. How could he swim so fast? The swimming world champion can't even keep up with him. Curious, she rushed over to ask. The boy said his name was Jack because he was born without a belly button, so he was able to reduce the resistance of the water considerably, and he has a lot of talent in all areas. On this day, father was looking up information, but the computer that had just been repaired suddenly broke down again. Jack looked at the mess of codes on the screen. Surprisingly, it all registered in his mind instantly. Then he went to the other computer, tapping frantically on the keyboard. Not long after, the lost data has actually been restored again. But what's even more amazing is that, what month and date does the wind start blowing? What time does it start to rain? Even power outage times, he can accurately predict. More accurate than the gods. On this day, they wanted to play in the yard, but he sensed something unusual around him. The air seemed to have changed subtly. Suddenly, he grabbed his friend and ran to the house. He managed to prevent his friend from being struck by lightning. The next day he went to school, but when it came to playing basketball, he still wasn't low enough. With a casual toss, a 5-point shot went straight into the net. Even when he threw it over a telephone pole, the basketball would bounce off the roof and fall into the basket. The coach immediately made him captain of the team. When his parents heard about it, they were very happy for him.